Hi, it's Richard from In The Box Productions. I hope you're having a great day and welcome to a new tutorial about compression. So let's start by opening up the compressor that is on the vocal track, and we'll start by having a listen to Devon, our favourite singer from Apple Loops.
There are days and there are nights I can't stand losing you.
So let's start by having a look at the interface of this compressor with all these buttons here. Here we have the threshold, then we have the knee here, the attack, the ratio, the makeup, and here we have the release. So by choosing graph here in this window, you can see here that when we move the threshold switch, the line goes down and back up to 0 and right down to 50. And what I'm going to do is put the ratio at 2, which means that there's 2 dB that go in and 1 that comes out. So it compresses by 2 dB. And if we put it up to 3, that will compress 3 dB to 1 dB. So only 1 dB comes out when 3 goes in to the compressor. So let's start by bringing the threshold down to about 17 and then bring up the ratio to 3. And you can see here the gain reduction is starting to hit and the graph is showing us what's been actually compressed as we move through. And we want this to hold a bit longer, so we're going to bring the release up a little longer, so it holds the compression, holds the compression longer as it compresses, as you can see here, and that will hold the compression, which is useful for vocals. So here you can turn on the auto, and that will automatically calculate the release. But for vocals, I prefer to do it myself. That's pretty good on drums though, but I prefer to do this myself, keep it longer. So if I start exaggerating these settings, you can see how this moves the lines on the graph here and how the gain reduction is quite loud and it starts squashing the sound. If I take it right up, you can see how this is reacting here. So you get an idea of how the compression works here visually, which is pretty useful. Maybe not so drastic. Bring it down a bit. There we're losing a little bit compared to your original voice. So let's make up a bit here with the makeup button.
I can't stand losing you.
So that's how I compress vocals. And so let's move on to doing drums. So let's start by inserting a compressor on the drum track itself. But before we do that, I want to have a look at the different sort of compressors they've got here. They've got several sorts. So the first one is the standard one, which comes with Logic. This one emulates the Focusrite Red, as you can see. Here is the classic Uri 1176. Here we have the DBX 160. This one is the SSL compressor. Another one that emulates the Uri 1176. And here we have the LA2A. So let's come back to the Platinum original Logic compressor. And here we're going to change the settings a bit. We're going to have a fast release and a slow attack. I have a slow attack to let the transients come through so the drums aren't too smothered. So here you might notice that I've got the soft distortion activated. So if you take this off, you can hear the difference. Makes it pretty fat and adds harmonic distortion that you get in analog machines like compressors or tape machines and stuff like that. Use the compressor to sculpt the sound as well as limiting or controlling volumes. In this case, we've added a bit of harmonic distortion. Now, when you do that through a track, it adds a little bit of punch to each sound that makes your whole mix come to life, and you're not adding to the general volume of the sound. It's perceived loudness that you're getting. So let's have a look at that. I'll explain you what the perceived loudness is. So when you're hearing the sound louder, the volume is not louder. So if we open up the multimeter, we can see what kind of loudness readings we're getting and compare between having and not having distortion and compression. And like I said, this adds a little bit to each sound, and it's louder to the ears but not louder to the mix, so your levels aren't going to get in the way of the final compression and limiting, etc. But here we're at about minus 8.7 and 8.8 without the compression, and we're at about minus 16 RMS. Here's the loudness unit that's reading out at about 80.1. So if I turn this on, you can see that you can hear that we gain, and we're still at minus 8.7. I can't get it to be exactly the same because the increments go up by half a dB on the makeup. So here you can see I'm gaining at least nearly 0.7 of a dB, so over half a dB. And here as well we've gained with the unit, here we can see with the loudness unit we've gained as well. So if we compare, you can see with the RMS here, which means root mean square, we are gaining over half a dB in perceived loudness, but we're not getting louder with the peak. So by 1 point, which is nothing, but compared to what we're gaining in loudness. But that's pretty efficient. That if you do that on every track, and you gain half a dB of perceived loudness, you're gaining a lot of loudness. By the time you've mixed your track, it's going to sound fat compared to if you don't do that. And your mix will then master a lot easier, a lot bigger, without having to push stuff so much, and it just will generally make your mix sound better. If we compare some of these compressors, you'll hear there's quite a difference in sound, and we've got a lot of choice here, so it's quite nice to have this. And yeah, I think these are really good compressors. And I think it's the SSL that kind of wins it for me here, and the LA2A is pretty good as well, I heard. If you compare it to the original one, I don't use the platinum that much actually. I use this is my default, but I change all the time. I quite like the LA2A on the drums. I use the red compressor on the keyboard sometimes. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, like, subscribe, leave some comments, and I'll be back real soon.